Over on Instagram, I asked you guys to shoot me some questions, some things that maybe you want to know about the United States Army, and maybe I grab a few of those to put into a video. Well, got some good questions in there that I thought maybe some of you may be interested to know the answer to. Things like, do special schools help you with promotion? So if you want to know those answers, stick around. What's up, my friends? Welcome to an all new video. I'm U.S. Army veteran ThatChrisChaos, and today I'm answering your questions from the Instagram. Some people send me some questions, some good ones that I felt other people might want to know the answers to. So I put those together to try to facilitate you with the answers to these questions. Maybe gets your mind going and makes you think about some other questions maybe you want to know the answers to that maybe I can help you out with in the comment section, or maybe on the Discord, link down in the description, over on Instagram, hit me up. Whatever the case is, we're gonna answer those questions. And if that's the type of interesting content you want to know about, things about the United States Army, well then maybe think about clicking on that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Also click on that bell to get alerts as soon as new videos go live, to include the live streams to become a part of that awesome notification platoon. So let's get into this and let's answer your questions. First question is, what other branch does the Army work the closest with? That would probably most likely be the Marines. I mean, the Army still has some capacity where they work with other branches and everything like that, but I feel like the Marines is probably the branch that they work the most with. I mean, you have a lot of examples of, like, at Fort Leonard Wood, if a Marine is going to do like police training or doing truck driving training like 88 Mikes do in the Army, they go to Fort Leonard Wood, right? So both Marines and Army both train there for that same kind of job. So you have that. Also, like with airborne school and all those things, other branches can still attend that, but it's a little bit more common for Marines to be doing that. So while the Army still works with other branches, right? It works a little bit with like the Navy, maybe even a little bit with the Air Force here and there, whatever the case might be. The Marines is probably the one they work the most with because they're the most common kind of individuals. You have the Army that does ground type of warfare, as well as the Marines. They're a little bit more focused towards like the beach and everything, but they still do a lot of the ground warfare. Whereas you have your Air Force, it's more for your aircraft, and then your Navy that does Navy stuff, ships and everything like that. Coast Guard and Space Force, obviously, definitely very much different from the Army. So Marines are probably the ones that they work the closest with. Still not a super common thing, the Army working with Marines, as a very common everyday type of situation, but as far as looking at the branch that they work most commonly with, it'd be Marines. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard is it to switch to active duty from the reserves? So if we're going off of a 1 to 10 scale, 1 being super easy, 10 being really hard, it still kind of depends, right? If you're just trying to randomly go from reserves over to active duty, it's probably like a 9 or a 10, because you have to get your reserve unit to release you to go active duty. Now, if you're within the window for re-enlistment, then it gets a little easier. Now we're talking more like a 1 or a 2 or a 3 or something. Because if you're within your window of re-enlistment, you can re-enlist to active duty, and they really can't stop you from doing that, right? If they want to keep you in the Army, they gotta, kind of try to make you happy. As long as you qualify for whatever it is you want to do and transition from the reserves over to active duty, you can re-enlist for that. So when you have, let's say you did a 4-year contract, you're on that 3rd year, right? You have 1 year left in the Army and the reserves, and you want to talk to that retention NCO about re-enlisting, and you tell them that you want to re-enlist, but you want to go active duty, pretty easy kind of thing to do. If you're just, let's say you're doing a 4-year contract and you're only 2 years deep into this thing, and you're deciding you don't like the reserves, you want to be more busy, you want to be more active, you want to go to the active duty side, that's a lot more of a challenge to try to do that. You're probably gonna have to wait until your reserve kind of contract is about to run out and re-enlist for it. You can still talk to somebody about it, because you might have some special situations where you are able to do that very easily, because maybe they need to open up your slot or whatever the case is. So I would still definitely open up the conversation, but it is definitely a more challenging thing to make happen if you're not within the re-enlistment window to re-enlist to go active duty. Same basically goes the other way around too. So if that kind of makes you curious as, well, what about the other way around? If I'm active duty and I decide I don't want to do this every day and I want to only do it part-time and I want to go reserves, same kind of thing kind of applies, right? You can't just randomly 2 years deep into a 4-year contract decide, this isn't working out for me, I don't want to do this all the time. Can't just switch over to reserve right away unless there's some kind of specific window of opportunity that opens up, like your MOS is over strength or some kind of crazy thing like that. Otherwise, you're probably gonna have to wait to re-enlist to go reserves if you want to switch over that way. So vice versa, kind of the same equalness as far as how hard it is. It's most commonly a little bit easier when you're within that window to re-enlist to renew your contract. As an 88 Mike, do you go to different schools or courses to learn other vehicles? So while 88 Mikes will attend certain schools, not specifically schools though for vehicles, that's usually a unit type of level thing. You will go through AIT, you'll learn specific vehicles, but then outside of that, whatever vehicles you didn't learn in AIT, that has to come from your unit. Your unit will kind of train you up on these vehicles that they have at that unit to make sure that you're proficient enough to be able to drive those vehicles and be licensed to drive those vehicles. So even though you went through school to learn how to drive these specific vehicles, even if they're the same vehicles you did in AIT that are your unit, you still have to get licensed on them. You still have to do a little driver's training, go through it with a master driver to be qualified to drive those vehicles. And that also carries over when you change units too. So even though you may have gone through driver's training at one unit, you switch to another unit, maybe a couple years down the road, wherever the case is, you have to repeat driver's training with them as well. So you'll go through that. Whatever vehicles that unit has, you go through some kind of driver's training, you have a master driver that kind of qualifies you on that vehicle, and he goes on your license. That license is really only just kind of good for in the military type of thing. You have this little paper printout that just shows what vehicles you're licensed, you've been qualified to be able to operate. So all those vehicles are done at that unit kind of level. There's only a few other kind of vehicle ones like the bus driver school, right? If you want to learn how to be a bus driver or your unit sends you to go do that because they need someone qualified to be able to drive the bus, that one's like something on post. You'll go and take that class and learn how to drive the bus driver. That's not even necessarily like regulated to only 88 mics. There are some other MOSs that'll sometimes do this as well. And so you'll have to get licensed on being able to drive the bus so that you can check out the bus from that TMP location on the installation. Now, schools that 88 mics will do that are outside of vehicles, you might do things like hazmat, fuel handlers, ammo handlers. There's all sorts of different kind of classes that you'll possibly do that kind of are needed for certain type of things. If you're going to be an 88 mic that's going to be transporting ammo, well then you usually have to have the ammo handlers course. If you're going to be transporting kind of hazmat, then you have to do the hazmat course. And those are usually like 1 day to 1 week type of courses that, you know, go on your record as showing that you have this education. Maybe they go on your license to show that you're allowed to transport these things. So different qualifications kind of come with different type of taskings, different type of roles that you might have to do as an 88 mic as well. Now, as we're going through these questions, you might be thinking, hey, I got some questions I want to know the answers to. Well, maybe that's appropriate for the Discord channel that I've got a link to down in the description box down below. So hit that up, join the Discord. We like to keep it friendly and keep it peaceful, but you can join our Discord and you can hit up the community of veterans, some other individuals that are just like you wanting to join the Army maybe, or maybe some people that are currently in the Army. Whatever the case is, hit up the Discord, ask your questions there, engage with the community, make some new friends. Check that out. Let's get back into the questions though. Does going to special schools, such as Airborne, help you with promotions? So the answer would be yes, for the most part. Now, for promotions from E1 through E4 or private to specialist, it's not gonna help you at all. Those are pretty much automatic promotions that are based on a set amount of time that you've spent in the Army, and time in that rank qualifies you to move up in the next rank and get promoted. But it will help you from going from a specialist to a sergeant and from a sergeant to a staff sergeant. That is because those ranks require a little bit more work to do. You have to go through the board, you have to go through some schooling, you have to meet some points requirements for that MOS to be able to get promoted. So in that case, Airborne, Air Assault, certain other specialty schools would help you because going to military schools, getting military education helps you towards getting points that you need to make that points requirements for that MOS for that next rank. I've probably talked about the point system before. I'm not going to get all in depth with that, but you have a point system usually that, you know, to move up to E5 and E6 that are required only for those ranks. E7 is a different process and beyond, but for E5 and E6, it does have a point system that varies based on the MOS. So doing things like getting more military education, civilian education, your PT score, all that stuff adds up toward the points to make that requirement that you need for that specific month, for that specific MOS to get promoted. So specialty schools can help you to get promoted, for at least for sergeant and staff sergeant. Next question is, do you still have to do basic training if you went through ROTC in college? So that one sounds a little bit tricky because if you've gone through the ROTC program, once you finish the ROTC program, you're in the Army, and at some point in time, you should have already gone through basic training. So for the most part, how that kind of works is there is a specific phase during ROTC where you will attend basic training. So you're doing your thing, you're going to college, you're doing the ROTC program. Typically, I believe this phase comes between your junior and senior year of ROTC, where you actually go off to basic training during that summer. So you are then attending basic training as a cadet. Now, people don't really know that you're a cadet unless you disclose that. Maybe the drill sergeants probably know it from your paperwork, probably if they're looking into it, but otherwise they don't know that you're a cadet based on just general knowledge. You're not wearing anything special. Usually you come in, maybe, I think they sometimes have some of you come in as a specialist, maybe a PFC or something like that, but you're getting paid like E6 pay because you're a cadet and you have the education and you're going to be an officer. So you're not getting that basic E1 pay like a lot of the other soldiers are that are coming in as an E1 maybe. So unless you disclose that you're going through the ROTC program, that you're going to be an officer, a lot of the basic soldiers don't really know that you're actually going to be an officer. So yes, you still go through basic training as a cadet going through ROTC. If you've already gotten a bachelor's degree and now you want to come in as an officer, then you go through OCS, which has their own basic training type of thing. It's a lot of the same stuff. Both, no matter if you're an officer or enlisted individual, basic training for the most part is the same. And now the last and final question, is the Army more dangerous than the Navy? That is really going to depend, all right? There are definitely certain MOSs, certain jobs that are more dangerous than the Navy, but there are also certain jobs on the Navy side that are more dangerous than the Army side. For example, if you're like a finance individual on the Army side, maybe a legal person on the Army side, that's definitely not as dangerous as like a Navy SEAL or certain other jobs that are on the Navy side that are a little bit more in a dangerous type of environment. And vice versa, right? So even the opposite way, right? If you're a legal person, probably the Navy, that's not more dangerous than a special forces infantry guy or whatever on the Army side. So that really depends. And that really goes across for any branch really as well, because there are definitely dangerous jobs in each branch. And when you compare that dangerous job compared to a non-dangerous job in the Army, then yeah, that branch is more dangerous than the other one, but not necessarily to say that entire branch, right? But that specific job in that branch of service is more dangerous than this job in the branch of service. So you can't really as a whole say that, you know, the Army is more dangerous or the Marines are more dangerous or the Navy is more dangerous, because it really depends on what you're doing, right? Even I know some of you are thinking right now, no, well, the Marines is definitely more dangerous than all the branches. And that might not be the case at all. You still have cooks, for example, in the Marines, right? Someone who's cooking and making food in the Marines, just because they're in the Marines, doesn't make them more dangerous than a Navy SEAL, than a Special Forces individual, a Ranger, a 11 Bravo, all those kind of things. So it really depends on the job as far as that job being more dangerous compared to that branch of service being more dangerous. So those are just a few questions that I kind of gathered from some of the ones that were sent to me via Instagram. If you have some questions you want to know the answers to, you can leave those down in the comment section down below. You can utilize that Discord, the link down in the description. You can hit me up on Instagram. Lots of different ways you can try to hopefully find the answers to these questions, and I can try to help you to maybe answer them. I don't know that everything for the United States Army. I don't know the end all be all answers to everything, but I can do my best and maybe hopefully point you in the right direction. So if you like this Ask Chaos type of video, maybe you want to see more of them, well then make sure you hit that thumbs up, maybe leave me some comments down in the comment section telling me you want to see more Ask Chaos type of videos maybe in the future. So thank you so much for watching. Check out the links down in the description for social media, so much more. I'm ThatChrisChaos. Thanks for hanging out. I'll see you next time. See ya.